House Republicans are going to push to vote to reverse the provision allowing senators to sue over their phone records. Mike Johnson, why are you protecting Jack Smith?
You can see when you look at what he was doing, he was the one with a conspiracy. The conspiracy that Jack Smith was running was across the country to try to build this network to take away citizens' rights.
But why is Mike Johnson not just signing off on this bill from the Senate? Why do they have to strip out any penalties from Jack Smith? Dang it! Jack Smith in hot water. The Senate is working to be able to sue him. We got Eric Schmidt, one of the senators who got spied on by Jack Smith's thugs and the Biden administration, came out and explained exactly what's going on in this new Senate bill that allows the senators to sue Jack Smith and other deep state hacks for violating their rights. And what's curious about this is we have a little bit of a rub because the House Republicans may not be down for this because, they didn't get spied on as much. So here's what Eric Schmidt posted. The government reopening soon, they tell us, and they put in this little provision in there that brings some accountability over for Jack. He says, last night while I presided, the Senate delivered both a funding bill and a private right of action to sue Jack Smith and his lawless goons. We are going to drag Arctic Frost from the court of public opinion to the highest courts in the land. Now, here's why this is such a big deal. This is what's in the bill. The Senate passed a continuing resolution. We're going to fund the government through January, and we're going to have a minibus inside containing 3 appropriations bill, one for military, ag, and legislative branches. The key provision here is in the legislative component. He says, at the very end of that appropriations bill is section 213. This provision does many things to improve the law. It mandates data disclosure, it updates the notification requirements, and it allows the senators to sue, a private right of action. You can see right there. Just a few weeks ago, says Schmidt, when I called for the impeachment of Judge Boasberg, this same provision was the key. Arctic Frost broke the law. However, there was no cause of action in the law. There was no criminal penalty. The only thing we could do was impeach. And so these claims now can be brought against retroactive violations. Anything that happened after January 1, 2022, we should be able to sue about. And this encompasses the entire Arctic Frost subpoena frenzy that Judge Jeb Boasberg rubber stamped. Got that all in the law, saying we can now sue you. Now, fear not, this won't slow down the impeachment train for Judge Boasberg. If anything, we are only beginning to pick up steam on that front. As for potential criminal law violations from the Biden-era weaponization, the indictments will continue to flow. Now, Mike Johnson says House Republicans are introducing standalone legislation to repeal that provision. We are putting this legislation on the fast track calendar in the House for next week. House Republicans are going to push to vote to reverse the provision allowing senators to sue over their phone records. Mike Johnson, why are you protecting Jack Smith? Well, that's very interesting. So we'll see ultimately where that goes. But if the Senate passed something that included that in there and the House pulls it out, isn't that going to have to go back over to the Senate to get them to approve it? Or are they going to reconcile that somehow? But if that's true, then is Marsha Blackburn going to be okay with having Mike Johnson strip that out? Because we do want some accountability for Jack Smith and Boasberg, and we've been demanding that Congress do something about it. So now they've done something about it. So why is Mike Johnson going to repeal that provision? I don't know. Maybe he'll explain himself. But Jim Jordan sent over a letter, and they're investigating Jack Smith and the Arctic Frost goons. And here's the letter that got sent over to the Inspector General's office from Jim Jordan. We love ourselves a good Jim Jordan letter. Here's what he says. All right, Don Richard. On the morning of August 9th, the FBI agents and one agent from the DOJ, the Office of the Inspector General, who are supposed to be those independent people who do their own investigations, they seized the cell phone of Rep. Scott Perry while he was traveling with his family. The seizure was related to a joint investigation conducted by the OIG and the DOJ, codenamed Arctic Frost, which later became Special Counsel Jack Smith's partisan case against Trump, as we know. Recently, internal FBI documents show that as part of the Arctic Frost investigation, FBI got call logs for cell phones that were, quote, associated with 9 members of Congress, and that Biden and Harris, they assisted the FBI in getting the phones that were assigned to Trump and Mike Pence. We want now the materials about your involvement as the Office of the Inspector General and your assistance with the FBI. According to reports, you used your laboratory in Northern Virginia to help the FBI conduct a forensic review of Scott Perry's phone. Reports indicate that Perry's phone was imaged after the search, creating a forensic copy of his entire phone, including communications protected by common law privileges as well as the Constitution's speech or debate clause. Your assistance in imaging this phone raises serious concerns about why you would be willing to sacrifice your so-called independence, because none of them are, to help the FBI in their partisan investigation. And reports also indicate that the FBI got logs for 8 U.S. senators senators and one representative for the period of January 4 to January 7th. The FBI reportedly obtained these logs from the members' phone carriers. Verizon gave them all. These reports raise concerns about your potential involvement in the phone records and getting these records. And so as part of our oversight, we would like some answers from you. We want you to give us all documents and communications between your employees, the FBI, anything relating to the seizure of the cell phones. And additionally, we'd like a briefing from you as well. Please brief us on this info. A complete and detailed explanation of the OIG's involvement in the investigation and the obtaining of any records of any congresspeople. We want a complete and detailed explanation of whether any OIG employees suggested or raised any constitutional concerns, or did anybody object and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this? Did anybody say, hey, maybe we should just not, throw this over the bridge? Please produce all documents and schedule this as soon as possible, but no later than the end of November. We're authorized to do this, okay? So give us the documents. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan. All right, so the Office of the Inspector General, they always come out. The OIG report says this. It's an independent body, an independent report. They're filled with partisan liars, just like the rest of them. All right, so Jordan sends the letter. We'll see if we get any answers on it. Mike Johnson doesn't want, I guess, any accountability for Jack Smith, but here is Ed Martin. He was hanging out with Matt Gaetz over on OAN talking about some of this stuff, and here is what they had to say.
Some additional tools in this pardon to give a Harmeet Dillon at the Civil Rights Division some relief, some ammo to go after state attorneys general if in violation of this pardon they continue to throw people like Rudy Giuliani and Mark Meadows in jail.
Well, first of all, let me echo what you said. General Bondi, when I came in to be a weaponization, committee chair, head of it, she gave us a list and she said, go after it. And Todd Blanche, you mentioned, he said, go after it. He's a dag. Harmeet Dillon is fearless. It's fantastic. But you're exactly right, Matt. Look, you're making an argument both in terms of the public perception, but also in terms of how do we get to the bottom of this? And when we see that Jack Smith, and by the way, the Jack Smith special counsel is also part of my weaponization committee, and we've been looking at that closely. You can see when you look at what he was doing, he was the one with a conspiracy. The conspiracy that Jack Smith was running was across the country to try to build this network to take away citizens' rights. Just what you said, Matt. If you take away someone's rights, to right to vote, right to access to the system, take away their freedom, and you use a network of individuals, especially if they're in power, attorneys general, prosecutors. Look, Fannie Willis, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, these people didn't come up with these theories. There was a management. We know they were at the White House. They were sending staffers from the DOJ into Alvin Bragg's office. That's Guy Colangelo. All this. So the fact is there's a conspiracy and a network that was used against the American people. This pardon not only gives protection, but it also shines a light. And I'll tell you, I got to tell you, Matt, says you'll love the story. I told the president about this early on, and he said to me, that's good. We should do it. And he said, but go and write this up, just what you described. And he said, write it up so people see it, because they can't just see a pardon. They need to see the why behind it. And when they see the why, they go, this thing is way off balance. And as you mentioned, my top choice for attorney general didn't get it. He's now being a media guy, but everybody else, Bondi, Blanche, myself, Harmeet, we're getting after this. I really think we're going to break this hoax, and the country, again, can move on from it because we're able to get to the bottom of it.
Yep, good. And it's all related. It's been part and parcel of our entire government for a long time now. 2016 was rigged by the FBI and the DOJ. James Comey and the CIA all involved in that. 2020, rigged again. FBI, Elvis Chan, censoring everybody. FBI, pressuring the social media companies to not cover the Hunter Biden story. CIA, writing fake letters about Russian disinfo and feeding that to the Biden campaign. 2024, FBI raids Trump's house. We still have no answers on the pipe bomber. No answers on the Gallows guy. No answers on Butler. The Charlie Kirk shooting. The media is trying to cover that up. The media is trying to prevent them from covering it up because the prosecutors and the defense attorneys are saying, we'd like to lock this whole thing down. And the FBI and the DOJ, nobody's filing to intervene to make more of this accessible. It's all related, and we need to fix these institutions, and we're hopeful that Ed Martin and the crew inside can lead us there. But why is Mike Johnson not just signing off on this bill from the Senate? Why do they have to strip out any penalties from Jack Smith? Dang it! We'll keep asking that question. Thank you for joining us as we do.